You ever get accused of something so ridiculous it makes you wonder if you're living in the real world or just stuck inside some neighborhood prank show? Well, let me tell you, in Maplewood Heights, nothing is too absurd for our HOA president, Karen Whitfield. Picture this: last Tuesday, I get hit with a legal notice claiming I built an unauthorized water pond in my backyard. Yep, a whole pond when the closest thing I've got to water is a garden hose tangled next to my shed. I'm standing there reading this thing in disbelief, and all I can think is, you gotta be kidding me. But Karen, oh, she wasn't kidding, not one bit. I wish I could say this was the first time our fearless leader pulled a stunt like this, but honestly, Karen's made a second career out of harassing folks over Lawn Heights mailbox shapes and now apparently imaginary water features. The envelope from Whitfield and Associates' fancy, intimidating font, and all arrives with my bills. Says I violated HOA regulations, threatens fines, legal action, the works. It's got measurements, estimated environmental impacts, a list of demands, drain the pond, fix the damage, pay up. But here's the best part. I don't have a pond. I walk outside scanning my yard like maybe a body of water materialized overnight, but all I see is brown grass, a few stubborn dandelions, and the old oak tree my grandfather planted before I was born. You'd think an obvious mistake like that would be an easy fix, right? Just talk it out. Not with Karen. She comes armed to the next HOA meeting with irrefutable evidence, a satellite photo, all annotated arrows, highlighted patches. She's got her hair pulled tight, suit pressed sharp, voice ringing out like she's arguing in front of the Supreme Court. She points to a blue-green smudge under the oak's summer shadow and proclaims, "There's the illegal pond." And the room eats it up at first. Now, I could have lost my cool, but instead I just laughed. Not a mean laugh, more like the laugh you let out when you realize someone's looking for their glasses and they're right on their head. Of course, Karen's face goes red as a stop sign. She claims I'm threatening the community's mental stability. You know what I mean. Calls 911 right there in front of everyone. And just when you think this circus couldn't get any wilder, Mrs. Patterson's sweetest neighbor you ever met, sharp as a tack at 80, leans in and whispers, "Did she even check the property records? That oak's been here longer than Karen's had her last name." Next thing you know, cops show up, notepad in hand. Rodriguez and Kim, they look around like they've seen it all before because, let's be honest, in this job they probably have. We take a field trip, Karen the officers. A parade of neighbors shivering in the January night out to my backyard. Rodriguez waves his flashlight around, checks the ground, peeks behind the shed, steps over a rake. "No pond," he announces, trying not to smirk. And when he looks at the satellite photo Karen's clutching, he says, "Ma'am, I used to be a civil engineer. This is a tree shadow, not a water feature." You should have seen Karen's face. She looked like someone pulled the rug right out from under her. But here's where it gets good. Because Mrs. Patterson, bless her, shows up with a box of my grandfather's old papers, including a geological survey from the 50s. Turns out the whole area sits on granite bedrock. You'd need dynamite and a construction crew to put a pond in that yard, and there'd be more evidence than just a weird patch on a photo. When Rodriguez confirms that Karen starts spiraling, they covered it up. They're hiding the truth. Her own board members start looking at their shoes. Now most folks would apologize and go home, maybe bring a pie to say sorry for the trouble. Not Karen. Next day I start digging digitally, not literally, into Karen's pattern of HOA harassment. And what I find flips this whole thing from petty to sinister. See, every time Karen targets a neighbor, that house ends up sold for cheap to a mysterious investment company. And guess who's behind the company? Karen's husband, Robert. Yeah. Suddenly, all those stories about folks getting forced out over minor violations start making a lot more sense. Dave Murphy, one of the quieter board members, finds his spine and shows me a string of emails. Turns out Karen's been targeting me for months, plotting legal strategies, watching satellite images, estimating how fast she could force a sale. It wasn't about a pond. It was about getting my corner lot for pennies on the dollar, flipping it to developers for a fat profit. Word gets out and Karen panics. She brings the local news, makes it a circus, paints me as some kind of eco-villain. Reporters on my lawn neighbors, giving me the side eye at the store. One even throws a rock through my window. But if there's one thing I've learned, it's that sunlight kills more than just mold. So I go live, walk the backyard, show the empty grass, the oak tree, the geological survey, the internal emails, the police report, answering questions in real time. Folks see for themselves there's no pond, no scam, just an HOA president who can't stand being wrong. And then, Officer Rodriguez, the hero, we didn't know we needed leaves. A public comment I investigated. No violations. Just a shadow. The tide turns. The story spreads. Reporters start digging into Karen's real estate deals. Turns out there's a whole pattern: forced sales, targeted families, fraudulent citations. Friday comes and Karen's last stand looks more like a demolition derby than a meeting. She hires a drilling crew to prove there's a pond under my yard. The whole neighborhood crowds in as they dig, hit nothing but solid rock and red-faced embarrassment. Mrs. Patterson stands up louder than I've ever heard her and spills the beans about Karen trying to buy her house under threat too. Dave projects those HOA emails for everyone. Officer Rodriguez announces there's now a full investigation into Karen's abuse of office and fraudulent real estate practices. Then a journalist walks in waving documents connecting all the dots. Karen cracks, screaming, blaming, threatening to call 911 again. But this time nobody's buying it. The room erupts in laughter and Karen's empire crumbles. Fast forward 3 months and I'm sitting under that ancient oak, kids playing, neighbors laughing. Karen nowhere to be found. She's facing real charges, her husband too, and the families who got pushed out, they're coming back court mandated. The HOA, Mrs. Patterson's running it now with more transparency in a week than Karen managed in 2 years. Best twist of all, turns out my lot sits on the only corner perfect for a future shopping center. Karen wanted it to flip to developers for a cool $1 million. But instead, I donate the land oak tree and all to the county for a park in memory of my grandfather and Mrs. Patterson's courage. That tree's now got a plaque kids swings and it'll stand long after Karen's name is forgotten. So what's the moral here? Sometimes the scariest bullies are just folks desperate for power. And sometimes laughter really is the best weapon. But if you ever find yourself trapped by an overzealous official, don't just roll over. Shine a light, find your allies, laugh if you can, and fight smart. Have you ever had to stand up to someone who tried to use authority against you? I'd love to hear your story. Drop it in the comments. Let's talk about real justice, real community, and maybe even a little neighborly revenge.